Okay, this is the start of number 18. It says in the instructions, factoring the basic trinomial with the leading coefficient. You see, this term is called a trinomial term. And we have to first look to see if there are any common factors in this trinomial term. And we can look, we have 3, 9, and 30 as the leading coefficient. So what is the greatest common factor of 3, 9, and negative 30? So the greatest common factor is 3. So now we snag out the 3. Now we're able to divide 3 into each term. So 3 will divide into 3 one time, or just make it be x squared. 3 will divide into 9 3 times, that was 3x. And 3 will divide into negative 30 minus 10. Now, look at the problem now. Are we finished? Can we factor it down further? Yes, we can. We have this trinomial, and we can factor it into two binomial terms. This is where we have to split the x, and we have to use our thinking cap and think of a question. The question is, what multiplies to give you a negative 10, and the same two numbers add to give you 3. And so what are those numbers? 2 and 5. So now we can determine which one is the negative, the 2 or the 5. Since we want the 3 to be positive, that means that the 5 is a positive and the 2 is a negative. Therefore, our final answer, as far as this binomial, is x plus 5 and x minus 2. Now, let's not forget in our final answer the 3 that we had factored out. So the final answer to this problem is 3 parentheses x plus 5, x minus 2. Okay, the next problem we're going to look at is problem number 19. So let's first look at what are our common factors of negative 2, negative 8, negative 8. So the greatest common factor we have that we can take out, let's take out a negative 2. Now we could take out a positive, but if we take out a negative 2, open parenthesis, okay, we are going to divide negative into negative. That will give us a positive x squared. So we want to have a positive x squared. So negative 2 into negative 8 will give us a positive 4x. And our negative 2 into a negative 8 again will give us a positive 4. Okay, now are we finished factoring? No, we can still choose our puzzle. So what multiplies together to give you 4 times and adds together to give you 4. So we know that is 2 times 2. That is very simple. We're at the point where we're finishing our problem. We have to split it up into two binomial terms with x as the leading coefficient, x as the first term. So how do we write it? Both numbers are positive, x plus 2, x plus 2. Because 2 times 2 is 4, 2 plus 2 is 4. And don't forget about the negative 2 we took out at the beginning of the problem. Now our next problem is number 21, where we have 3x cubed plus 9x squared minus 12x. First of all, let's look and see if we can determine what is the greatest common factor of all three. So we can see the greatest common factor is 3. So if we take a 3 out, and let's look at our variables. Do we have an x in all three terms? Yes. Look at the smallest x, which is just regular x. So we can take out a 3x. Now we can start our factoring. Now dividing 3, we'll divide into 3 one time. X into x cubed, x squared, because you have to subtract the exponents when you divide. 3 will go into 9 3 times, and x will go into x squared x. 3 will go into negative 12 minus 4, and the x's cancel. Now, are we finished? Let's see if we can break it down even further. Now we have the x here, x. Now we have to determine what our puzzle is. What do we need to find out? We need to find out two numbers that multiply to give you a negative 4, and those same two numbers add to give you 3. Okay, multiply negative 4, add to give you 3. So let's see if 1 and 4 works. Okay, can you multiply 1 times 4 and get a negative 4? Yes. So a negative times a positive is a negative, and you want a positive 3. So that tells you the 4 must be positive and the 1 must be negative. So that's going to give you a positive 3. So now let's look at 4 and 1. These are our answers. 4 and negative 1. So minus 1 plus 4. And don't forget about the 3x here. Okay, I'm going to fix that minus sign there. So we have here. So this is the final answer. We factored out 3x first. Then I factored down the trinomial into two binomial terms, noting that negative 1 times the positive 4 is a negative 4, checks. And negative 1 plus a positive 4 is a positive 3, check. Now we're going to look at the problems in the next section. Now these problems, if you look at them, you cannot factor out any common factor here because 3, 5, and 2, there's no common factors here. But you are able to factor it down into two binomial terms. Now you know the first term will be 3m, and the second term can be m. So I'm going to show you the guess and check method. Then I'm going to show you the method used called factoring by grouping. So let's look at the guess and check. What we need to determine to go in these blanks is two numbers that's going to multiply to give you 2, and then the outer plus the inner is going to give you 5. Okay, so what two numbers multiply to give you 2? You know, since 2 is prime, you know it has to be 1 and 2. So if we put 1 here and 2 here, now we can test our outer and inner. Is 3 times 2 6, right? And then 6 plus 1 will give you 7. So 6 and 1. We don't want 7, we want 5. Now let's switch the order. Let's put the 2 first, then the 1. This is guess and check. I'm going to show you another way that you won't have to guess and check. Now let's see, is the outer number is 3. The two inner multiplies together to give you 2. So it's 2 plus 3, 5. That checks out. So this is the answer. This is one method. Now, I'm going to show you another method. Using this same problem, we're going to factor in the method called factoring by grouping. So first step is take the first term and the last term and multiply it. That gives you 6. So then write the middle term here. So our essential question is, what's two numbers that multiply to give you 6 and add to give you 5? And we know it's 2 times 3, and they're both positive. Add to give you a plus 5, multiply to give you a plus 6. Now we call it factoring by grouping is because we're going to regroup that 5x or 5m into 2m plus 3m. So I'm going to rewrite the problem. 3m squared plus, instead of writing 5, I'm going to write 2 or 3m, doesn't matter what goes first, plus 2m, that's the same as 5, plus 2. Okay, now we're going to group the first two and factor out the common factor. What's the common factor here? 3m. So if we take out 3m, we divide 3 into 3m squared, you're going to just get m, plus 3m will go into 3m one time, so m plus 1 there. Now, what are we going to factor out of the second group? We can factor out a 2. So if we factor out a 2, divide 2 into 2m, and we get m. 2 into 2 will get 1. Now, when these two are the same, that's just a variable, a like term, so to speak. So that's going to be a part of our answer, m plus 1. Now, the numbers outside, which is 3m plus 2, is the other part of the answer, which is the exact same answer we got in the previous problem. Okay, last problem, number 33. Let's do this factoring by grouping method because you don't have to guess and check, and sometimes it's a lot faster to do it that way. So we know we're going to factor this trinomial into two binomial terms. Nope, this is not factoring by grouping. I was going to do guess and check. Okay, the factoring by grouping means you're going to multiply the first term times the last term, and you're going to get negative 60 as our number. And you just write the middle term down, minus 4. Now you think, what two numbers multiply to give you 60 and add, a negative 60 rather, and adds to give you 4? And those two numbers is 10 and 6. Now let's see which one needs to be a negative. You want a negative 4, so the negative has to be 10 and the 6 has to be positive. Okay, so you have your negative 4 here and you have your negative 60. Now let's start rewriting the problem. So we're going to rewrite 2x squared, regrouping the 4x, we're going to regroup it to minus 10x plus 6x. Regrouping, and then minus 30. Okay, so now we're going to factor out two at a time. So first we're going to factor these two. So what can we factor out? We can factor out 2x. So if you factor out 2x, what's remaining? X minus 5. Now we're going to factor out 6. What's remaining? The 6 and 6 is one time, so that's x minus 5. Okay, so now our final answer is, we have to put the 2x and the minus 6, so these are treated just like variables here. And that gives you 2x plus 6 rather, not minus 6, plus 6 is the first term, and the second term is x minus 5. You know in the end, it works when these numbers are the same.